If no, we shall now move to our first session for the day, which will be chaired by my colleague, Mrs. Evelina Vasileva, Deputy Chair of the EU Affairs Committee. I would also like to welcome our moderator, Professor Ingrid SHIKOVA. Mrs. Vasileva, Professor SHIKOVA, please, the floor is yours.
Prime Minister of the Republic of Bulgaria, colleagues, guests, allow me on my behalf to welcome you to Sofia. Microphone for the speaker. It is my pleasure to chair the first session dedicated to the accomplishments of the presidency of Bulgaria of the Council of the EU. We have taken over the presidency in a challenging time, in times when we have to discuss a common approach to migration and refugees. We have to discuss the multi-annual financial framework, Brexit, and we have to discuss youth and bringing them to the center of European policies. The European prospects of the Western Balkans. These were all topics which became part of the scope of the Bulgarian presidency. At the beginning of this year, we have set ourselves some very ambitious goals. We had a very busy schedule, and now, days before we have the Austrian colleagues taking over the presidency, we have to take stock of our accomplishments. I would like to place the emphasis on the Western Balkans and the historic meeting that was held, the summit between the EU and the Western Balkans on the 17th of May this year. I have to underscore that the National Assembly is a reliable partner of the Bulgarian government throughout those 6 months. The parliament supports the government of Boyko BORISSOV to work towards balanced solutions and to be an honest broker to find a reasonable compromise between the interests of all member states. In a decision from December the 1st, 2017, we, the Bulgarian parliamentarians, expressed our principal support for the priorities of Bulgaria's program for the presidency. Because the presidency is a national cause above all parties, and the Bulgarian parliament shares its main messages for consensus, competitiveness, and cohesion. Therefore, colleagues, I would like to say that we have achieved successes in all the 4 priority areas in those 6 months: economic growth, social cohesion, stability and security in Europe, European perspective and connectivity of the Western Balkans, digital economy, and skills for the future. One significant component of the Bulgarian presidency is the parliamentary dimension. On the 28th of July 2017, the calendar was adopted in the plenary of the Bulgarian National Assembly. We had successful conferences for the interparliamentary dimension, 6 of them, and I'm sure that our last interparliamentary meeting today and tomorrow will lead to important conclusions that we will be able to transfer to the European institutions. The concrete results that we have accomplished deserve some attention. During the interparliamentary conference on the common foreign and security policy and the common security and defense policy in Sofia, the heads of delegations adopted a statement which outlines the possibilities of the European Union to tackle the challenges that we are faced with in those common policies. In Brussels, the Interparliamentary Conference on Stability and Economic Coordination and Governance in the European Union discussed in detail the political priorities of the European semester for 2018, the next multi-annual financial framework for the period 2021-2027, and the deepening of the integration in the Economic and Monetary Union. The parliamentary dimension has brought a very important decision. With a consensus in Sofia, we accepted the rules for the joint group for parliamentary scrutiny on Europol. And this was a compromise that nobody actually expected. During the meeting of the chairs of the energy committees of the parliaments of the European Committee, the delegates discussed energy security and the security of supplies to the Union. Therefore, I can conclude that during the 6-month program of interparliamentary meetings, we have discussed a lot of the topics which were part of the program of the Bulgarian presidency and in the political program of the presidency trio, Estonia, Bulgaria, Austria. We have shared our views on many of the important items of the agenda of the European Union. We supported the executive branch in tackling the common challenges for the Union. We have been led by the principle of the presidency on unity and solidarity towards realistic results in the future. Thank you for your attention, colleagues, and now I would like to give the
Шикова, преподавател в Софийския университет Свети Климент Ohridski и един от доайените на европейстиката в България. Тя ще бъде модератор на тази първа сесия. Професор Шикова, имате думата.
Благодаря много, госпожо Василева. Уважаеми господин министър-председател на Република България, уважаема госпожо заместник-председател на Европейския парламент, уважаеми членове на национални парламенти, Европейския парламент, уважаеми министри, госпожо Павлова, радвам се, че сте сред нас, уважаеми членове на дипломатическия корпус, уважаеми делегати, скъпи гости, добре дошли в България, добре дошли в София.
Момент, има проблем с превода. Има проблем с превода на английски. Може ли да...
Защо няма превод? Само за момент. Сега наред ли? Моля преводачите още веднъж да опитат с превода. Технически ли е проблема? Помогни нещо. Не знам защо така. Какво се случи? Аз мога да говоря на английски, ама не, това е... Just a minute to check what is the problem. Is it
Може ли да направим тест отново?
Много да проверим.
English channel.
Yes, it's okay. It's okay. Добре. Sorry for the problem, but you know there are always problems with the interpretation. It's okay now. Yeah, it's okay. Сега ще опитам на български.
I will try to speak Bulgarian again to see if there is interpretation. So I would like to go back to the topic that we're discussing today. Dear guests, I accepted the invitation to participate in today's event because I feel it's a kind of recognition for me, being a long-standing professor on European affairs in the Sofia University, and it's also a recognition for the entire academia and its contribution to the Bulgarian presidency. Now that we have been a member of the European Union for 11 years, Bulgaria has taken over the presidency in challenging times. We've heard that from the previous speakers. But I would say that these are interesting times as well. If we can call last year the year of ideas for the future of Europe, this year is the year of decisions. Decisions that have to be wise, have to be forward-looking. They have to bring together various interests and compromise between them. Those decisions have to ensure a better and more secure lives for us Europeans. In the September speech of Jean-Claude Juncker, September of last year, he was talking about the winds that brought the appropriate change. And I think that the Bulgarian presidency managed to use those tailwinds. And let's remind ourselves what Seneca has said. Tailwinds do not exist for the person who does not want which port they want to reach. Bulgaria has chosen priorities which are clear and I would say very difficult priorities. However, they could be accomplished, and Bulgaria had a clear idea where we wanted to reach. We could have chosen the easy way and to just be an administration of the presidency, to administer the presidency. However, we've chosen the more difficult option to have more ambition and to set ourselves feasible political goals. In 2012, I published a book which was dedicated to the rotation presidencies in the European Union. I have to honestly admit that when I researched all the presidencies of all the member states, I was really concerned how Bulgaria would do in this role. And I've written in this book that the presidency will be like a maturity exam for Bulgaria after having spent 11 years in the School of Europe. And now, being a representative of the academia, I may safely say that we can do it. We were able to accomplish what we have set our.
Как успяхме? Вече бяха споменати няколко пъти нашите приоритети. Приоритети с поглед в бъдещето. Мобилизиращо мото. Съединението прави силата. Ценностите всъщност са спойката, цимента, който ни... Ой, my enthusiasm is cut. No translation again. Какво беше преди малко? Микрофон.
Може ли да проверите микрофона, преводачите, ако обичате?
English channel? English channel? English channel?
Now, is it okay now? Yes, it is. Okay. Fine. Да продължа се.
So I will continue with the concept of unity. Unity is really important.
Мотивиран и амбициозен.
What we need is also an ambitious and motivated team. Young people who are well trained, well educated, and people who were doing a very delicate balancing act, but with sufficient confidence and sufficient backing. As Albert Einstein has said, the king of formulas, when there is a will, there is a way. And this is what the young people of Bulgaria did by contributing to Bulgaria's presidency. Of course, we had the support of the Bulgarian citizens. We should not forget the fact that Bulgaria is one of the most pro-European countries. Last week, we saw the results from the latest Eurobarometer, and Bulgaria, together with Portugal and Ireland, is ranking on top in terms of believing in the European Union and believing in the European institutions. Bulgaria, being a president of the Council, tries to move the European Union forward and to contribute to its unity. And last but not least, we had good coordination and good relationships relationships with the European institutions. The European Parliament, I can see Madam Monica Panayotova, who put forward a lot of efforts to contribute to the relationships with Parliament. I can see Mrs. Lilyana PAVLOVA, so we had a very good collaboration with the European Commission, and there was a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm put into this job. What will our presidency be remembered with? The presidency of hope for the Balkans, for the Western Balkans. I think that's the key word. The spirit of Sofia. Let this spirit continue in the coming months, in the coming years. This is the spirit of pragmatism, realism, and a lot of energy. As the Nobel Prize winner Umbridge said, life gives us back only the things we have given to others. We have tried to make our presidency the presidency of optimism. And we tried to overcome the lack of confidence, the fear for the future of Europe. If you don't believe in your own success, you will not succeed. And in conclusion, maybe it will sound a bit pompous, but the presidency of Bulgaria is a historic event for Bulgarians. We have probably not imagined 25 or 30 years ago that Bulgaria would ever be presiding the Council of the European Union. I will finish with one sentence that I used to quote by Marcel Proust, the French writer. The true journey to discovery does not mean to look for different landscapes and new landscape, but to have new eyes for what we see. I think that Bulgaria managed to look at the European Union and its place in the European Union with new eyes. And I hope that our partners have seen Bulgaria with new eyes as well. And with those introductory words, it is my honor and pleasure to give the floor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Bulgaria, Mr. Boyko Borisov. Mr. Borisov, you have the floor.
Благодаря.
Thank you.
Добър ден.
Good morning to you all. First of all, allow me to thank the Bulgarian Parliament for the support, for the active cooperation, and the support that this government enjoys during the period of Bulgaria presiding over the Council. The 6 priorities have indeed, and the 6 events of the parliamentary dimension have indeed accomplished a lot. As the speakers before me and Minister Pavlova will be also talking in detail about the different priorities in the portfolio, allow me to dwell on some of them, because I think it would be good to discuss them together. At the same time, I suppose you want to know what our thinking on these issues is. And these are rather sensitive issues and of high importance for the whole of Europe. That's why I'd like to focus on them. The Western Balkans. Even the term itself, Western Balkans, is not correct, at least when you're on the Balkans. For hundreds of years, we have been fighting different wars. We have been in different alliances. And hundreds of thousands of our people have died in the course of these conflicts. The latest war in Europe took place about 15 or 20 years ago in Kosovo. And again, on the Balkans, thousands were buried in mass graves, destruction at large scale, and then billions from the European Union, from all of us, had to be invested in the recovery. But look at the recovery itself. Just a month ago, the Mostar Bridge, which is a UNESCO protected site, has been rebuilt. And this bridge took 20 years to be rebuilt. So it's very easy to destroy and very difficult to rebuild. So Macedonia, arguments which had been going on for decades, stood in the way of signing a contract a treaty of friendship. And together with my counterpart, Mr. Zaev, the parliaments and all the efforts invested in this effort came to a fruitful end. But this is not enough, and that's why I'm so happy that here in Sofia, Minister Tsipras and Minister Zaev found a solution and stated they would come up with a solution for the name of Macedonia so that Greece would no longer stand in the way of further treaties. Yes, indeed, there are protests, but anyone who observes this process from the sideline and together with the support of Madam Mogherini and the commissioners and all parties concerned made a contribution toward a successful completion. So together with Mr. Taci and Mr. Vucic in Sofia, we saw them shake hands and we saw again some success in accomplishing this process. Of course, we know that the countries from the Balkans have a long road ahead of them.
Държиме хората на Балканите и не на последно место.
Sorry, but from time to time the mics in the booth are switched off, and that's where we don't have the translation. So if the colleagues could be more in the yes, now they are back, so there will be. I'm sorry, Prime Minister, there was no translation. Sorry.
Много е важно да не пипате микрофоните, защото се изключват. Сега как е превода? Изключвай. Като се натисне едно копче и изключва всички микрофони.
Може ли колегите в преводачите да проверите микрофоните, ако обичате?
Има проблем, технически сменили се пулта на кабина.
Бихме ли проверили дали е добре?
Can we check again, please?
Да, работи.
Еми?
Сега работи.
Ето тази кабина е проблема, ние гледаме в нас, тя тази е проблема.
Да. Така че...
So we invested a lot of effort, and I think that we have made some progress. We're optimists.
Пак ли има проблем?
Не, няма проблем.
Everything fine? Okay. The other topic that divides Europe and where we invested a lot of effort indeed is migration. You see, on a daily basis, we follow what's going on in Germany and the discussions, the debates on this topic. We also witness the actions of the new Italian government. First of all, allow me to say what Bulgaria is doing. Without saying too much, without complaining too much, we set up reliable border security on the border with Turkey, but not only. We built up the necessary fence, we added up to the police and military force there, additional ships on the coast, and for years the Bulgarian migration rate has been zero. So for your information, you can look at the map, if you wish, the map of the Balkans, and you will see that the border between Bulgaria and Turkey, both the land border and the sea border, is about as long as neighboring Greece. In other words, when there is political will and when the Schengen commitments are complied with, Bulgaria can say that it has accomplished its tasks. That's why we suggest a compromise. And I would defend it in the European Council, because both countries are, in a way, right. Both my colleagues and counterparts from the Visegrad 4 and the countries where the highest number of migrants aim for. So we suggest, first of all, prevention, immediate prevention, that is, closing all the external EU borders. Anyone who wants to access the European Union, be it an economic migrant, be it someone fleeing from a war or conflict, should go through the border crossing points. And fingerprints are taken there. One should say where they're going, why they're going, where they want to go, and whether they are wanted there. So this is no different from the US, from Canada, from Australia. I said the same to Jean-Claude Juncker as well. Let's make an experiment. Let's go to Washington, D.C. and say at the airport that we have left behind our IDs. Are we going to be allowed into the US, into Canada? Why should Europe be open for everybody? We have the Schengen, we have everything else you can think of. And this is the reason to start building walls inside Europe, because the whole principle of free movement within the European Union is being undermined in this manner. The front line countries, Greece, Spain, Italy, France, may need help. Yes, then they should get assistance. And then everyone should have to go through the formal border crossing points. Those who are within the European Union, the migrants that are here already, should be subject to checks to see whether they can be integrated, and those who can't should go back to the state of origin, respectively. If this is not being done, then this would always be the principle that would be dividing member states. And after all, it's not right to go anywhere you want. For instance, we Bulgarians, when we go into another country, we need to show our ID or our passport. We may either be allowed in or not. And then migrants, on the other hand, are free to have access anywhere without inspections, without border crossing checks, and we say this is correct. So the first word is prevention, an immediate stop of this migration flow. And I am sure, I know my counterparts from the Visegrad 4, and they're no less Democrats than we are. They're no less friends than anyone else, friends of Europe. But when we have certain guarantees that the plan would work, I'm sure there would be understanding. Not to mention the Middle East in this context. I can't see how the wave of migrants from this part of the world would ebb. The wars are gaining ground, the threats are increasing, and we see that not only Syrians, but people from Iraq, from Afghanistan, from Africa are fleeing. We are not talking about people fleeing the conflict in Syria. And of course they would be fleeing because the air raids are not stopping. They have been going on for years now. I have said it on many occasions so far. Diplomacy still leaves a lot to be desired. In other words, on all the portfolios we have made progress, and Minister Pavlova will talk about this. Progress in some is better than others, but these are the key ones. And if we don't solve the problems today, there would be really serious problems in the future. So the Western Balkans as a source of terrorism, then wars, trafficking. Unless these countries join the European Union, and then the discipline there would prevail. Of course, none of the countries that joined the European Union were fully ready, but we take advantage of experience, of the wisdom, and the values of the European Union had made us better by so much. And the same should be done about the Western Balkans. And we see that what is necessary is political will, despite all the tensions and the migration process, which should come to an end in the way that I mentioned. And I'm sure sooner or later this is going to be the case, and this is going to be the end of it. I've been talking about this for 3.5 years. But a new government in Italy had to come to the fore to say, stop it, that's it. What it took was also the Visegrad Four to say, stop, that's it. Why didn't we do it 3 years ago? At least 1 million migrants wouldn't have been here, or they would have come in an orderly fashion. And the member states that need more labor force and they want to integrate them could do it. So if in June in Brussels we can't come to an agreement, we will certainly come to an agreement at a later stage, but under the pressure of events. As we see, the communities, the societies in the member states push the governments to take extreme positions. Let me say it once again. In Bulgaria, we did that 2 years ago, and the outcome is 0 migrants. Yes, NGOs came to us. We had been inspected on so many issues, but at the end of the day, we guarantee 100% access is secured through the external border of the European Union. And this is a task for parliaments, for governments, and we have accomplished this task. And the European taxpayer had to pay an additional 160 million euro for that. And we have been saying day in, day out, big thank you. Thank you, Bratislava, for this decision. But I think in the European Commission's report, this figure is 26 billion, I think, if I'm not wrong. This is the amount of money spent on migration. Well, in Bulgaria, it is 160 million and 0 migrants admitted into the EU. And you, as parliamentarians, can probably ask why this billion has been spent, which countries the money has been going to. And out of the 160 million, in Bulgaria, because of the lengthy proceedings and the public procurement procedures, Bulgaria has been able to absorb 80 million. For the remaining 80 million, there are still ongoing procedures, attempts to redress, and so on. So I hope that in the future you would be helping in the same manner. With Sebastian Kurz, we have been talking about this within the last 6 months. He has been kept well informed on all the processes, the Western Balkans, and so on. I'm very glad that yesterday he stated that the Western Balkans remain a priority during the Austrian presidency as well. We have a very good dialogue with him. And within the trio, of course, we are going to help as much as we can until the end of this year. Please remember that if we don't support the Western Balkans now, it may be too late later. And the big geostrategic players are waiting on the sideline. the US, Russia, China, Turkey, they're all sitting by the sidelines. And the easiest access to Europe is through the Western Balkans. And we are talking of spheres of influence here. We have been talking about ports, railroads, motorways, digital infrastructure, and in the next few years that would cost about 32, 33 billion euro. But the war in Kosovo, Sarajevo, Mostar costed over 50 billion. And the military facilities are still there. Bulgarian soldiers are in Kosovo, in Sarajevo, in Kosovska Mitrovica, in Afghanistan. There are Bulgarian troops there as well, and we are paying good money for that. While what we offer is peace, infrastructure, understanding, and opportunities for business, your business, our business, to invest and achieve prosperity, against the background of the billions and trillions that Europe is spending. This is peanuts. And in order for you to imagine what we are talking about, and I'll end up at that, when we talk about the Western Balkans and what the dimensions are, let's say the following. If it were one country, the population is lower than Romania's, and the GDP is about the size of Slovakia's. So if we are thinking of one state, it would be a population less than Romania's and the GDP of the size of Slovakia. I'm certainly not underestimating our neighboring country, Romania or Slovakia, but just think of these figures in terms of the risk. We can always absorb it. Thank you again for being here. You're most welcome. I'd like to thank the Bulgarian government, the members of parliament, the colleagues who are here, academia. Thank you for all your support. And honestly, I'm very pleasantly surprised to see all these young people around, all the colleagues working on Bulgaria's presidency. They did very well. Thank you. I was a bit worried, but I'm sure you would appreciate the logistics, the support, which thanks to the European Union, we're able to do that. Thank you again for being in Sofia.
И аз ви благодаря, господин Борисов.
Thank you, Mr. Borisov. Once again, you showed us the spirit of Sofia, realism, pragmatism, and energy in order to continue to an open and constructive dialogue for the Balkans, for Europe, and I should say the whole world. I have the pleasure to give the floor for a brief address to the Minister of the Bulgarian Presidency, Mrs. Lilyana PAVLOVA. She is the representative of this young generation, which made our presidency, and I think it's rightly to say that, a success. Thank you. Good morning, Prime Minister, members of the European Parliament, members of the national parliaments, Mrs. SHIKOVA, Deputy President of the European Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Thank you for this opportunity to present to you the progress and the achievements of the Bulgarian presidency during the last meeting of the biggest interparliamentary meeting. To us, the interparliamentary dimension is extremely important. It plays a very important role in terms of contributions to the presidency. We take into account the key role of the parliamentary dimension for the successful holding of the presidency as a guarantor for the democratic legitimacy of European policies and representation of the interests of European citizens. For us, the role of the Bulgarian parliament was very important, and I would like here to thank the Bulgarian parliament and especially to Mr. Cristian Vigenin. Mr. Vigenin, the Committee on European Matters and Oversight of EU Funds, we worked very well together throughout the whole time. Thank you, Mr. Vigenin. I would like to thank all the members of the Committee on European Matters and Oversight of EU Funds, because we were able to achieve a constructive dialogue. We received support which was important for us when defining and preparing the priorities, as well as when preparing the national positions. In the course of the presidency, it was important for us to be sure that we are on the right track. It was important for us to be confident that the topics taken up in the challenging debates we had to hold were addressed in the right way. Looking back at what we achieved, we set ourselves an ambitious goal. I believe that we were able to achieve it. As we heard so far, we want to build bridges. We want to be a mediator leading a constructive dialogue. We wanted to be a pragmatic presidency oriented towards achieving results. We wanted to find compromise and consensus in order to achieve results. We were results-oriented because we realized that in 2018, as the last full year, when legislation can be adopted before the European elections in 2019, it was very important to be responsible in this process. The date for the upcoming European elections in May 2019 was set under the Bulgarian presidency. A highlight was placed on the preparation of these elections. I'm happy that we were able to conclude work on the regulation for the statute and funding of European parties and foundations. This is a reform which will guarantee that EU funds will be allocated to European parties with a clear political agenda meeting the needs of our citizens. We were able to achieve agreement on the Council on updating the electoral law in the European Union. This was again a challenging debate. The new rules which were adopted aim to strengthen the participation of citizens in the electoral process and raising awareness on the European character of the elections. We wanted to prevent illegal voting. We wanted to strengthen respect of the constitutional traditions in the member states. I would not list all the achievements of the Bulgarian presidency, because I have to say that the Bulgarian presidency worked on all topics of the European agenda, the program of the trio, and all the topics of the Bulgarian presidency program. We worked actively on each and every topic, wanting to achieve progress. Sometimes we were able to achieve general approach in the Council. Sometimes it took days and nights of long debates with the European Parliament. And I would like to thank very much the representatives of the European Parliament for the support they gave us. We had successful trialogues. Two of the topics were already mentioned by Prime Minister Borisov, the topic of the Western Balkans. I believe that not only did we bring this topic back to the European agenda, but we did it in an irreversible way, with the confidence that the Western Balkans must be in Europe. The second topic, one of the hottest topics on the global agenda, I should say, that is the topic of security and migration. This is a topic which is to be discussed at the upcoming European Council on the 28th of June. This month, we are all looking forward to this debate and to the decisions which will be taken by the leaders in the European Council. We hope that this will provide the basis for the next steps. And here I have to say that the Bulgarian presidency worked hard, proposing a new direction and new ways to solve this problem. We offered a new approach based on prevention, based on a combination between responsibility and solidarity. We need to deal with this difficult question together. The five dossiers under the Dublin reform have been moved forward. Trilogues last week were successful. That's why I believe that when adopting political decision at the highest level and achieving consensus, we will be able to move forward with the reform under the Austrian presidency. This is very important in order to demonstrate that Europe can make things work and achieve results on these difficult topics where consensus is difficult to reach. The other two important aspects I would like to focus are two important policies we worked very hard on. One of these is the future of Europe. The debate we held, the debate for which we provided the basis and which will be continued under the next presidencies, is the multi-annual financial framework. It was very important to us for this debate to focus not only on the accounting dimension, but also on policies, the strategic vision, the combination of traditional policies and their adaptation in order to meet the new challenges. I believe that the Bulgarian presidency put a solid basis in this respect for further work. Regarding the debates related to finance and economy, we did a lot of work there too, with the adoption of the files of the package for decreasing risk in the banking sector. We were able to achieve a common approach as well as on the directive for empowering national competition authorities. This was also an important success of ours. Another important sector where the Bulgarian presidency achieved a lot after challenging debates was the social dimension. After the hard work on the social pillar and the social dimension, the consensus on posted workers is what I find one of the biggest successes of the Bulgarian presidencies. The directive set forth the principle of uniform payment for identical tasks across member states. I think this guarantees equal labor conditions across Europe, and this was very important. Now we are looking towards the next round of negotiations on the mobility package. This is again a challenging debate, and again we will have to find a solution which will protect the interests of all hauliers in the Union. In the social area, the presidency worked hard on a number of legislative packages, such as the services package. This package concerns a huge part of workers in the Union. We achieved a consensus on the legislative approach related to regulated professions. We expect to achieve consensus in the Council over the next few days on the coordination of social security systems, the work-life balance, transparent and predictable working conditions. These are legislative proposals which are extremely important to guarantee good labor conditions for all workers. Young people are another important highlight in the priorities of the Bulgarian presidency. With the Council decision, the Europass update was adopted, as well as the recommendation to facilitate the apprenticeship, as well as a decision on the European Youth Orchestra. We adopted the recommendation for the development of key competencies in lifelong learning, as well as regarding inclusive values of the European education. We discussed the ways to reform the existing mechanisms for support to young people. We adopted conclusions on the role of young people in building a more secure, harmonized, and close society. As a presidency, we achieved success on the European Citizens Initiative. This is an important instrument for the European debate and democratic participation, enabling European citizens to propose legislative changes. So far, the procedure has been quite complex and cumbersome, but I believe that the general approach we achieved will open opportunities for making this debate move forward. The fourth important priority, a very important priority, under the Bulgarian presidency was Digital Europe, digital transformation and digital economy. After the efforts of the Estonian presidency before us, I believe that the Bulgarian presidency contributed a lot as well to the functioning of the single digital market. It is very important to set up the digital single market, and we were able to achieve consensus with the European Parliament on the regulation for a single digital gateway. We also achieved a general approach on the cybersecurity package. It's a very important package, especially considering the Agency for Network Security. In light of everything which has happened recently, we need to be able to make sure that we have good actions and measures in place guaranteeing the security of all citizens and businesses so that they have trust in the digital single market. After many efforts, we achieved agreement in Council regarding the regulation on IPR as well as the Audiovisual Media Services Directive. These were legislative pieces of legislation which were heavily fragmented, and I'm happy that we were able to achieve consensus on them. We also achieved agreement with the European Parliament on the European Code for the Electronic Communications, which is widely known as the BEREC regulation. I believe that with the efforts of the Bulgarian presidency towards the digital transformation, which is very important for Europe, Europe cannot afford to lag behind if we want to stay competitive in the new realities. I believe that we contributed significantly as a presidency in this respect. Not least, I'm happy to announce the success of the presidency regarding the future strategy for industrial policy in the EU. Industrial policy is a very important matter for the EU if we want to have a competitive, stable system in Europe for the next 10 years. If we want it to be competitive and future-oriented, we need to move forward. So this was also a topic on which we were able to achieve success. I will not continue further. We can list many other successes. We have done a lot of work. What's important for us is that we have consistency with the Austrian presidency, the priorities of the Austrian presidency, security and migration, digital Europe, and Western Balkans, continue the work of the priorities of the Bulgarian presidency. And these 3 priorities of the Austrian presidency were 3 out of the 4 of the priorities of the Bulgarian presidency. That's why we believe that the Austrian presidency will continue our efforts and will guarantee a strong, secure and united Europe, a Europe that we all need. That is why I hope and wish every success to my colleagues from Austria, the representatives of Austria and the Austrian presidency. You have our full support. I hope that we will be able to continue the work on each of these files. If you allow me to have 2 more minutes instead of a conclusion, to play the Bulgarian presidency video to our guests. Thank you for your attention.
Bulgaria. Poets and writers have praised our country as a paradise on earth, and you will recognize this yourself. Our greatest treasure is the Cyrillic alphabet which today is used by 300 million people around the world, and of course by all of those whose literature we are proud of. You can see some of Europe's most ancient cultures in Bulgaria. Here is the oldest collection of processed gold, along with many other treasures and sites. The Bulgarian spirit is a beautiful and infinite mystery. You can hear it in the biggest opera halls in Europe, at the most prestigious musical forums, or in the depths of space where a Bulgarian song also travels. A brilliant example of the richness of our national folk music are its unique asymmetrical rhythms. You can see the Bulgarian spirit in the works of the old or contemporary Bulgarian painters, or simply by looking into our eyes. Legends are told about the Bulgarian yogurt, and they are all true. We are proud of what our land bears, so maybe it's no coincidence that it is Bulgarian scientists who are developing the first greenhouse in space. We'll help defeat astronauts in the upcoming mission to Mars. We Bulgarians are an ingenious nation. Mathematicians, physicists, biologists, doctors. A Bulgarian invented the Nivelin medicine. It treats Alzheimer's disease and it's made of snow bells. We have discovered the sixth heart tone, a landmark discovery of its time. Among our inventions are the computer, the answering machine, the electronic wristwatch, the gearless transmission, and many others. Some inventions can make you smile, like the pepper roaster. Others sound like science fiction, but are a fact, like the tablet for the visually impaired. It's very difficult not to fall in love with Bulgaria, whether it is with our golden girls, as we call our rhythmic gymnasts, or with our sports spirit and desire to better ourselves. A Bulgarian is the first gymnast who participated in the 6 Olympics. Our high jump record in the women's category has not been broken for over 30 years. The success of our wrestlers is legendary. Bulgarian athletes have often brought us joy and have won admiration of the world. Our country is the only one in Europe that has never changed its name. We have never surrendered our flag in battle. But what is important is who we are here and now. We proudly claim that we are tolerant, hospitable, talented, and inventive. We are the land of endless opportunities, open to development, investment, and growth. Welcome to Bulgaria, where we believe that united, we stand strong.
Искам да използвам случая.
I would like to use this occasion to invite you to visit Bulgaria not only on business and attending such a big event, but to come to Bulgaria and enjoy the beauties of our country. I'd like to congratulate Minister Pavlova for suggesting to play the video to lighten up the situation a little bit. Now I would like to hand over the floor to Madam Evelina Vasileva. We're running out of time. There are 17 requests for the floor, and Madam Vasileva will be the one to manage all those requests for the floor. Thank you. I would like to thank our moderator, Professor SHIKOVA. Colleagues, I would like to open the debate. As Professor SHIKOVA mentioned, we have 17 requests for the floor. The time that you will have for your interventions is up to 1 minute, and I would like you to observe the time strictly because we have a really busy schedule for this conference. So I would like to open this debate by giving the floor to Mr. Angelos Voltsis from Cyprus.
I will try in 1 minute at least to give you all the basics. I should say that Bulgaria took on the presidency at a very difficult time and appears to have succeeded with its main objectives. Of course, united we stand is indeed a motto we should allow to guide all of our work. As to Cyprus specifically, I would like to say that a lot of the threats that affect the European Union are in fact centered geographically on the Eastern Mediterranean. So we have ongoing illegal activities carried out by Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean, which undermine security and peace in the broader region, but also make it impossible for the EU to achieve its operational objectives, which would guarantee us a competitive position in a constantly evolving international system. Now, in Varna, the summit issued very clear conclusions. A clear message was put across to Ankara about the sovereign rights of the Republic of Cyprus and its rights to take advantage of its natural resources within its exclusive economic zone. Now, I know I have to be brief, and I will conclude by saying that the sustainability of the EU construction in future will rely on us remaining united, and we will do our best to achieve that for Cyprus.
Благодаря на господин.
Thank you, Mr. Votsis. Now the floor goes to Mr. Bizet.
Madame la Présidente, permettez-moi de...
Thank you, Chair. And allow me to congratulate Bulgaria on its presidency in a delicate economic environment. 34 key files landed on your desk. Of course, Brexit is one, a major geostrategic error on the British side alone, and we have to be very firm indeed when it comes to maintaining our internal market.
Entre l'Ulster.
Now, there is also the question of the border, the Irish border, which we have to be very careful about if we aren't to be led into a form of collective suicide. Now, with the digital policy, so artificial intelligence, supercalculators, cybersecurity, etc., I would like the Atos company, a French-German concern, should play a key role. I'm sorry about the MFF, which sees that we don't think that the CAP and the cohesion fund should be basically a variable used for adjustment.
Thank you, Mr. Bizet. Kriegbaum from Germany now.
Vielen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende.
Thank you very much indeed. So from our side, we would also like to express appreciation of the presidency and the great organization of the meeting. I have a general comment to make. I do understand that a government would want to present its achievements, but we come here in this format to discuss with each other. So we are now limited to 1 minute, but when some of us have traveled thousands of kilometers to be here, and that's really not what it's about. There's no point. So really, for the future of this format, we should consider this. Of course, a Prime Minister can speak for a whole government. Then you don't need to also hear from a number of ministers when because that's not what this format is about. I think because in this particular, with this approach, it doesn't make much sense.
Thank you, Mr. Kriegbaum. I would like to give the floor to Pia Kalma from Finland.
Arvoisa puheenjohtaja, pääministeri Borisov nosti...
Thank you very much indeed. The Prime Minister talked about the migration situation in Europe. Indeed, we have 500,000 asylum seekers who've been given a negative answer but not returned home, and largely because the countries of origin will not take them back. Now, we need agreements with those countries of origin, which will require also cooperation among member states. So the whole return process has to be speeded up. Bulgaria took the presidency on when the US was becoming very protectionist, and there are a lot of changes occurring worldwide to the political world as we know it. So congratulations are due to Bulgaria, and I know you have been active on a lot of different fronts. It's very good that innovation and research and education be a focus. And that's in that context, it's good to know that for 2020 to 2027, the Commission is proposing greater means, financial means, for those policy areas. I I'm glad to see that Bulgaria has indeed highlighted the same priorities, and I hope that we can move forward usefully with the MFF.
Давам думата на господин.
Now the floor goes to Richard Horshik from Hungary.
The floor, Madam Chairperson. First of all, I would like to congratulate for the Bulgarian presidency that the EU Western Balkans Summit held recently here in Sofia, I think, has opened a new window of opportunities for the revitalization of relationship with Western Balkan countries. I would like to agree that if we want a peaceful Europe, we should go on with the enlargement for the future, which Serbia and Montenegro had currently be considered as frontrunners. Just a few words on the migration issues. In my interpretation, after nearly 3 years of critics, we can agree that the decrease of arrivals along the Western Balkan migratory route is a consequence of psychical security barriers in Hungary as well as Bulgaria and Macedonia. I want to express my thanks for Prime Minister Borisov for the good cooperation on this matter. I wish to emphasize what he said. The effective control of the external land and sea borders should be the top priority for Europe. Thank you very much.
Благодаря.
Thank you. Now the floor goes to Markus Jones from Germany.
Vielen Dank, Frau Vorsitzende. Ich möchte auch.
Thank you. Yes, I would also like to thank the Bulgarian presidency. It wasn't easy. It's taken us a long time in Germany to put a government together in the same period. And all I would like to say is that we really urgently need a European solution for migration problems, that we need to protect our external borders, yes, but we need to be clear about what this is really about, because the pressure will continue to exist, and we need, as Europeans, to find work towards solutions with the countries of origin, because that really is where prospects have to be created for people. Without those prospects, there will be no long-term solution, and no walls will keep people out. Now, the MFF, Multi-Annual Financial Framework, in that context, it's very important to bear cohesion policy in mind, and that's really what we have to focus on.
Thank you. The floor goes to Reinhold Lopatka from Austria.
Dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank Prime Minister Boyko Borisov for his statement on the achievements of the Bulgarian presidency of the Council of the EU. And let me use the chance to touch upon some of the core themes that have been already on the agenda of Bulgaria and will continue to be on the agenda of Austria in the second half of this year. We will have 3 priorities. First, security and combating illegal migration. That remains one of the key challenges for the European Union, and it's important to tackle this issue collectively in order to ensure the EU's capacity to act together. And we have to strengthen Frontex, only to mention one point. So we will have a summit in September on this issue. The second priority will be securing prosperity and competitiveness, and the third one, in order to secure peace and security in Europe, we will continue what Bulgaria has in its focus to give the Western Balkans a European perspective, a perspective to be one day member of the European Union.
Thank you, Mr. Lopatka. Now I give the floor to Mr. Atis Lains from Latvia.
Latvia from the EEP, by the way. Allow me to ask a question about Allow me to ask a question about transparency. Everybody advocates it, but when it comes to gas pipelines, we see ourselves divided. The strange thing is that the Commission wants to extend the same standards for internal EU gas pipelines to gas pipelines entering from third countries, but we see that some powerful EU states oppose this. You are aware that Central and Eastern European countries overpaid for many years for Russian gas. An out-of-court agreement has been reached with Gazprom to stop this practice in the future. Then why oppose the Commission's wish to extend transparency to the gas pipelines delivering us gas from North Africa, Nordic states and Russia? Remember, we stand strong, and this united we stand strong, and this applies also to the third energy packet concerning external suppliers of gas to our countries. Thank you.
Благодаря и аз.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to Madam Regina Bastos from Portugal.
Muito obrigada, Sra. Presidente. Sra. Presidente, colegas, agradeço a hospitalidade.
Thank you very much indeed. I'd like to congratulate the Bulgarian Presidency for its successes with its presidency, and many thanks for the warm welcome here. You have been working in a very difficult European context, given that we want to create a strong social Europe, and in that short period of 6 months, the Bulgarian presidency has tried to focus on particularly, for example, the posting of workers, combating youth unemployment, digital Europe, amongst other files. The idea, of course, being to be active in all debates, whether they're on security or solidarity among the member states, on migration, how we can remain responsible and show solidarity, indeed, in the context of Brexit as well. The Western Balkan Summit was a great success, and your motto, United We Stand, will continue to guide us, and we look forward to working further on the Commission's proposals for the MFF.
Colleagues, I would like to stress impressive progress of Bulgarian presidency on hybrid threats, extended and broadened mandate of the Friends of Presidency and the Presidency report on implementation of Action 1 of the joint framework on countering the hybrid threats, even acknowledging that the primary responsibility of countering hybrid threats lies within member states. We must admit that all member states face common threats, and coordinated response is needed. Lithuania's priorities on hybrid threats are defined as follows: strategic communication, cybersecurity, vulnerabilities of borders, critical infrastructure, energy, transport, Ostrovets nuclear power plant. Also, PESCO should be open to cooperation with third countries. Important to reach decision on the third states' participation as soon as possible, and Lithuania's initiative dedicated to rapid response to cyber attacks was selected among first PESCO projects. The project aims in 1-2 years to create multinational cyber rapid response teams, improve mutual cyber assistance, and develop new capability that could assist member states or EU institutions, including CSDP operations, in responding to large-scale cyber incidents. And also we're looking forward to Austria's presidency, which young and proactive Prime Minister, Mr. Kurz, is strengthening the vision of Europe of nations and strong external borders and strict migration policy.
Благодаря на господин Пойдокас от Литва.
Thank you. And now Mr. Angel Tilbar from Romania has the floor.
Bulgaria. Thank you very much. Bulgaria took over the presidency, and it committed to be an honest intermediary, a representative and a coordinator, and I think it has managed. In this context, amongst many good things during the Bulgarian presidency, I appreciate that within the debates concerning the future of the European Union, the Bulgarian presidency stressed the importance of a strong social Europe, and given the demographic changes and the pressure on social systems of member states, the presidency focused on key initiatives such as the directive concerning the direction concerning the detachment of workers. Given the necessity to have an increased legitimacy of the European Union, especially before the following elections of 2019, I appreciate the focus of the Bulgarian presidency on the financing and the status of European parties and foundations. To conclude my intervention, I congratulate our Bulgarian colleagues for their management effort, for the substance and for the added value facing a terrible special challenge of each European country, namely the presidency of the Council of the European Union. And I wish full success to the Austrian presidency, and I expect very good results. Thank you.
Благодаря и аз, господин Тилвар. Думата има.
Thank you, Mr. Tilbar. Now, Mr. Siegbert Drösser from Germany.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a member of the largest opposition party in the German lower chamber, the Bundestag. You can therefore understand that the clear position on migration, particularly unregulated migration, and the commitment to solving that by Prime Minister Borisov, was music to my ears. I think that your presidency has shown that here in the Balkans, Bulgaria is #1. And talking to Mr. Borisov at the beginning of the year, in addition to the Western Balkans subject, there were 2 further subjects brought by Bulgaria to the agenda. And I was interested to see whether the primary objective of getting Bulgaria into the Schengen area and greater convergence with the Eurozone area would make progress. Bearing in mind what President Macron said, is that we should first deepen integration before any new members are accepted. Obviously, from the Bulgarian point of view, that is a clear rejection of any further prospect of accession in the next few years for countries in the Western Balkans. I'd imagine that that is now off the table. Thank you.
Благодаря, господин Дрёсе. Давам думата на госпожа Сорая Рамос, Испания.
Gracias.
Thank you. I am indeed very grateful to the Bulgarian presidency for all its efforts and congratulate you on the outcomes. On the migratory agenda, we have just dealt with the latest crisis. The Aquarius vessel with more than 600 people on board was drifting. Those people were at risk. Spain came forward and solved that specific problem, but we can't solve, of course, the broader problem. These migratory flows will continue, and the solution cannot be provided by any one country, but only by a common European policy. Such a European policy is not about opening our borders to all and sundry, but nor does can it be closing the frontiers to everyone either. It's about managing migration in an effective manner. And for that, there has to be a fair breakdown of responsibility among EU member states, depending on our populations, our wealth, our unemployment rates. And we have to establish clear measures for penalizing those who do not bear their share of the responsibility. We want, of course, a policy of cooperation with sub-Saharan countries as well, which is not just about dispersing aid, but about policies and positive discrimination in certain key areas like trade. So we began with the Lomé agreements. We have to carry that forward. At any rate, the management of migration has to have at its heart human rights. None of the countries represented here today, and in the context of the security policy, is permitted to breach international law, the right what we have to do is, in the process, of course, safeguard our own European project, which is all about human rights and fundamental rights. And without that, our whole project, the European project, is nothing.
Благодаря на госпожа Рамос.
Thank you, Madam Ramos. Mr. Jaak Madison from Estonia has the floor now.
Ja, suur aitäh.
Thank you very much. First of all, I very much agree to colleague Griechbaum, who spoke about the slightly bitter fact that there's too little time for discussion today. I'm really sad that the Austrian that the Prime Minister has left and we can't ask him relevant question. I think cooperation with Visegrad countries is very important on migration. This is an essential topic for the European Union, and we have to work on it. Unfortunately, I cannot ask from the Prime Minister a question, namely, on the one hand, we have the United We Stand motto, and on the other hand, he visited Moscow, where he apologized to President Putin. Now, is that unity if we ask the President of Russia for forgiveness? Thank you very much.
Благодаря, господин Мадисон.
Thank you, Mr. Madison. Now, Baroness Sandy Vienna from...
Congratulations to Bulgaria on their first presidency of COSAC. I also congratulate them on their priorities of digital services and combating fraud. As the UK has been mentioned, well, Brexit has been mentioned, I would like to put on record that UK remains and will remain, even when Brexiting Europe, a very firm friend of Europe. And we would very much like to continue our strong relationship with all of our European partners, particularly migration has been raised as an issue. And I agree with my Spanish and my German colleague that it has got to be something that is going to be tackled collectively with an EU perspective. But we must focus on looking at how we look at source countries to stop migration in the first place by encouraging economic growth. And I think that is one agenda that the European Union and members of it can work very collectively together on. And for us in the UK, with our own 0.7% commitment, we would urge other countries to also rise to that challenge.
Благодаря много. Давам думата на господин Малик.
Thank you, Mr. Malik Asmani, the Netherlands now.
Dear Minister Pavlova, Honourable Chair, dear Honourable members of the delegations, I would like first to congratulate the Bulgarian Presidency for all the achievements so far. You are doing a great job, and that with full respect of our Dutch delegation. I would like also to thank the Bulgarian Presidency for the possibility to host a transparency side session today during the lunch break, also organized with our Danish colleagues. This side session on transparency will take place in Hall 8. And as you may recall, at last Plenary COSAC in Tallinn, a paper on transparency was presented with 4 questions on transparency and democratic control. In our side session, we will discuss the answers we have received from several EU institutions, and we hope to share views on how we together as COSAC can bring further the important issue of transparency, because it's all about to bring EU closer to its citizens. One of the topics I want to address in this session is migration. Also, your Prime Minister mentioned it, and a lot of my colleagues. It's all about focus on the external dimension, enduring to have solidarity in the EU. It's not only border control. I know we have the Council at the end of this month, but my question will still be, what is the advice of Ms. Pavlova to our Austria colleagues? How to bring this important issue for the EU to common solution, also in line with the UN Treaty. Thank you so much.
Благодаря и аз. Давам думата на последният.
Thank you. And now the last speaker on the list, Ms. Lilyana Tanguy.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, members of Parliament, I think we can congratulate the Bulgarian presidency on several levels. First of all, the EU Western Balkans Summit, which was held right here in Sofia on the 17th of May last. There we had the heads of state and government of the EU and of 6 crucial partners from the Western Balkans. That was an occasion to reaffirm the European perspective of the region as a whole and to set up new measures to support the connectivity of the region and to have transition towards sustainable economies which will be respecting the climate. In that line, I would welcome the Sofia Declaration, which made it possible to point out the efforts being made by these partners in working towards the state of law. I think under the Bulgarian presidency that we have seen the entering into force of the general rule about data protection on the 25th of May. That means 500 million Europeans can now benefit from the protection of their data at an unprecedented level in the world. And then on the 27th of February, Council adopted the regulation getting rid of obstacles to e-commerce, thus facilitating a real digital market. The Bulgarian presidency also played an important role in maintaining cohesion throughout the EU as a whole. Not just the high-level question on cohesion in June, the 8th last, but the presidency also was involved in negotiations on Brexit in the second phase of the negotiations, where the unity of member states is crucial. Progress in terms of financing political parties throughout the European Union has also meant that we will have a greater democratic space as the elections approach us. So once again, I would like to restate my congratulations to the Bulgarian presidency for all the things they have achieved during the presidency. Thank you.
Благодаря и аз, уважаеми дами и господа. Благодаря на всички вас за...
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your questions and comments. Allow me now to give the floor to the Minister for the Bulgarian Presidency of the Council, Minister Pavlova, for a brief comment and in order to respond to the questions asked. You have the floor.
Благодаря, госпожо Василева. Едва ли в една минута и аз...
Thank you, Madam Vasileva. Within 1 minute, I probably won't be able to answer all questions. First of all, allow me to thank you all for your interventions, for the appreciation of the efforts of the Bulgarian presidency, of the Bulgarian government, and all colleagues involved in this process. Thank you for your support. Within the efforts, as Prime Minister BORISSOV said, within the efforts that we invested in order to implement the priorities, to adopt the legislation, in debating political issues, we were always guided by one leading principle: to find unity and span bridges. Bulgaria, with its long history, has been a country on crossroads, a country that has tried to be tolerant, find what unites us, what brings us together, rather than what divides us. This was the spirit of the summit meeting in Varna, the format which included Turkey. This was guiding the Prime Minister in trying to build bridges between the EU and Russia. This is our guiding principle in establishing the European prospects of the countries from the Western Balkans. As our motto goes, we do believe in unity. We do believe that unity will make us strong, because in unity we stand strong. Thank you.
Благодаря, министър Павлова.
Thank you, Minister Pavlova. Thank you, colleagues. This is the end of this session. I believe it touched upon on different viewpoints, and it provides an objective picture of the period of Bulgaria's presidency. Let's take our lunch break now. It will be until 1:45.